Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to B-Ball Breakdown, a special playoff preview. As we have a very special guest here, we have Evan from Orlando Pinstripe Post and Tom from Indy Cornrows. I hope he doesn't mind that I introduce him last, even though he is highly seated. And I thought what we want to do is go through a playoff preview. We're going to talk about this and see, and let's throw it to Tom to give us a little preview of what he sees this playoff series shaping up to be.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for having me on. You know, the Pacers are back in the playoffs, and actually being a higher seed really sounds strange for these guys. It's been a long time getting into a position like this. So really, everyone's just excited to be hosting a playoff game to start. And but they haven't proven anything. And even though the Magic have had their problems and obviously have the Dwight Howard injury, they still have to find a way to slow down their shooters and make plays and get over the hump and actually win a series. So it'll be a good test.
Evan, what are your thoughts with Dwight Howard out and the whole team dealing through all that stuff they went through? What's your take on this?
Well, Tom's right. It has been a while for the Pacers, and that's really the Magic's biggest advantage is more playoff experience. This group has, well, they didn't win last year. They got bounced out of the first round, but the Jameer Nelson, J.J. Redick, Stan Van Gundy core, J.J. Redick, like core. They've won some playoff series together. A group similar to this made a run to the NBA Finals in 2009, but it's going to be very, very difficult for Orlando with Dwight Howard out. Absolutely right.
Now, it seems to me that both these teams have the potential, if they're shooting really well, like we could have some crazy games that are like 120 to 116. Right, Tom?
Right, and actually that would definitely benefit Orlando. I mean, the Pacers' defense has improved lately, and they moved George Hill into the starting lineup at point guard, and that's helped the overall defensive state of mind of that team and their effectiveness. So I think they're going to want to slow it down and try and keep those Magic shooters from getting hot, but last time they were in town, boy, they lit it up, and so it could be some high-scoring games.
Evan, who do you see as key on Orlando to winning the series?
I think a popular answer to this question might be Ryan Anderson, but for me, the answer is Jameer Nelson. With Dwight Howard out, the Magic have gone almost exclusively pick and roll. It's pick and roll, pick and roll, pick and roll on every trip down the floor, and Jameer is going to be running that offense for 36 minutes a night. He's going to have the ball in his hands, and he's going to have to make the right decisions. Where does he pass the ball? Does he take it all the way to the rim instead? Does he keep his dribble alive and circle back out? That popular Steve Nash, Chris Paul sort of move. So it's really going to be up to Jameer in this series. And he's played well with Dwight out, although not shooting especially well. His decision-making overall has been very sound. And I think he really holds the key for Orlando in this series.
Tom, what do you think? Does Indiana have a defensive presence enough to keep Jameer out of the lane?
Yeah, I think, like I said, George Hill has moved into the starting lineup, and I mean, he really has, even though he's slight, he has long arms, and he plays a lot bigger than he looks. And I'm just thinking of a similar type player. Recently, they played Minnesota, who was, woefully undermanned. I admit, obviously, but just watching him keep tabs on J.J. Barea, it was pretty impressive. In fact, at the time, I was thinking, wow, the Miami Heat could have used him last year in the finals. So that's going to be an interesting matchup there for sure.
Yeah, it's funny. There's no doubt if you were to add up whoever has the most former Spurs probably has the advantage in any series. And so let's look at Ryan Anderson's been. I'm assuming he's doing a lot of screening and popping for threes. Is that how Orlando has shifted their offense, Evan?
Yeah, he's done some pick and pop work, but he's struggled with his 3-point shot since the All-Star break, and although he's a young guy, I do wonder if the compacted season is beginning to wear on him. But in the long run, that his struggles from 3-point range, I think, may help him just because they force him to find other ways to get involved in the offense. He scored, I believe it was 24 or 25 last night against Charlotte, but only made 2 threes. And that's good for him. He doesn't really have a back-to-basket game. If he's going to score a two-pointer, it's almost always going to be on a putback of some kind because he's a brilliant offensive rebounder. So that's another way for him to get involved is if Indiana takes that pass to him away out of the pick and pop, or if he's spotting up weak side and the ball swings at him and they take that away, he can get involved sneaking in from the weak side on other players' shot attempts and get putbacks.
I'm impressed by him. We did an article about that where he could very well be the prototypical new power forward who shoots threes like Novak and him, and who also gets rebounds. And I'm kind of curious, Tom. Like, let's talk a little bit about the bench. What do the benches look like for both teams, and who has the advantage there?
Well, I think the bench has been a strength for the Pacers most of the year. And they've been playing 10 deep. It looks like Frank Vogel's going to narrow that down and keep Dante Jones on the bench and instead use Paul George more with the second unit. But the addition of Leandro Barbosa at the trading deadline really helped add a little scoring punch to that second unit. And they're mighty quick when with Darren Collison and Barbosa out there. And then Lou Amundsen has been playing out of his mind, doing all the little things, dirty work, the Jeff Foster type plays that we're worried about missing with Foster's retirement. So they will want to keep the pace up, keep it running, and force the Magic to wear out or use their depth.
And Edmund, what do you got coming off the bench for Orlando?
It's a bare cupboard, Coach. Let me tell you that. And it's sort of proving that old adage, it's not the backup, it's the backup's backup. That's a problem when guys are injured. Because you look at Hedo Turkoglu is out. He might return for the playoffs, but in the last 2 weeks or so, he's been out. So they moved J.J. Redick into the starting lineup and slide Jason Richardson from the 2 to the 3. Well, now you don't really have a 2 guard. You're going with Quentin Richardson as your third wing. You replace Dwight Howard with Glenn Davis. It's fair. Davis is sort of overqualified as a backup. But then your backup bigs are rookie Daniel Orton and third-year forward Earl Clark. And the point guard is Chris Duhon. So I definitely give Indiana a heavy advantage in terms of the bench. And if, as Tom said, they have both Paul George and Leandro Barbosa coming off the bench, that is huge. Because when Orlando's second unit comes in, it's not pretty basketball.
No, and I also suspect that being prepared to go into, I want to say Market Square Arena, but it's not called that anymore. Was it Conseco?
It's Baker. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, it's Baker's Life Fieldhouse now. They just changed the name from Conseco.
So, but it still is a pretty raucous crowd. Is that right, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, we've had trouble with attendance, quite frankly, but when they show up, it's pretty raucous, and it seems like we're going to have good crowds for the playoff games, and it gets loud in there, that's for sure.
Well, let's talk about the last subject, which is close near and dear to my heart, which is the coaches. What do we got here, Evan? We got Stan Van Gundy, and for full disclosure, he was my boss in Wisconsin when I was a manager there, so I know him, and he's a great guy. And I think a really good basketball mind. How do you see the matches between him and Frank Vogel?
Well, and this is a subject I'm sure you're familiar with. It's very hard to evaluate what effect coaches really have on teams. They've tried to do studies on that, and it's inconclusive because so much of it is the stuff that can't be measured, the intangibles. But I do think, with no disrespect intended toward Frank Vogel, I do think Stan is the superior coach and basketball mind, but I also really have admired the way I guess he's in his second year now with Indiana. He took over for Jim O'Brien last year. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, he coached the last 38 games last year.
I've been really impressed with the way Frank has turned around Indiana. I think that Jim sort of wore him down, and he's got that team in the last year plus playing with great spirit, and I really admire that in a coach. It seems like he relates to his players, and they're buying what he's selling. I'm not saying that's not the case in Orlando, but I have a great respect for Coach Vogel, but I also think that Stan is a more meticulous game planner, certainly, and overall better coach.
Well, those are some strong words. Maybe we have our first fight. What do you think, Tom?
Well, I think Frank's strength is definitely his game planning. I mean, that's what he's done all his coaching career is break down film and game plan, and he loves it. In fact, after the game last night, he mentioned he could not wait he wasn't going to sleep all night. He was probably going to just dig into the Magic film and start looking at their tendencies and all that. But I agree that Van Gundy has the edge on the bench and during games. Vogel struggled last year a little bit in the playoffs. The team down the stretch against the Bulls really kind of wilted a few times, and so he that's all his experience in the playoffs. So he added some great assistants. Brian Shaw's been great, and he also has some good veterans now to lean on. David West is fabulous. I mean, he's almost like a coach on the floor, especially with defensive spacing and that type of a thing. And then also coming off the bench, Barbosa, he knows what he's doing out there as well. So I think he has some good support, and it'll be interesting to see how they fare this year.
Well, as the host, I get to decide how this is going to end, and I will tell you, I say it will end in 5 games. Sorry, Evan, but it looks like the Indiana Pacers have just too many, too everything. And again, thank you guys for coming on. Sports fans, make sure to check the links in the below because you can check out their blogs. It's great, informative stuff, and we will see you next time.